Well, hello there everybody. Welcome back yet again to my room. It's time for another drawing tutorial. This time we're going to be doing arms. Yes, you guys always get in the comments and let me know what you want. And finally, because I've always been reading them, we've gotten around to arms themselves. The circle is complete. Grab yourself a nice cheap sheet of paper if you've got it. If you've got better paper, fine, but don't wait for the good stuff. Super cheap mechanical disposable pencil right here, and then a rubber for when you're just a cock and you make mistakes. It happens to everybody, don't worry about it. I'm gonna dive straight in, so follow along at home. Firstly, we're gonna just talk about something super basic. I'm gonna fit it right in the corner of this page if I can, because then we'll crack on with some more important things. I'm just gonna get like half a human being basically just to fit on this page, something like this. And I'm just going to grab a half torso simply because we're going to talk very quickly about the very basic building blocks of an arm. Now, when it comes to these basic building blocks, you guys seem to get that idea fairly easily. So that's not really what we're massively going to be about. We're going to talk about those kind of arm positions that you guys actually find troublesome when you try to draw. If we draw a straight arm in one position and another position, you get it, but it doesn't really help you when you're doing your character designs. This is what you've been telling me. So let's firstly talk about the really basic shapes when we go from the shoulder. So I've got a front on character here, middle of the face there, probably have an eye line kind of round this zone here. I'll turn these into real characters maybe during the time lapse. Can you see that? Just about. Let's just click this camera phone a minute. Make sure it's in focus, lovely. And then I'm just going to put a slight stronger line on this outside edge. Now, I've already got tutorials on how to draw torsos, so we're not going to cover that here. And another thing you guys have said is that when I talk about other tutorials, sometimes it's hard to find them. So right about now, maybe somewhere up there in the top right, there's a link to that torso tutorial. And in general, these are called cards on YouTube. So if you hover over like an indicator icon, an information icon, generally that will expand out and show you lots of other videos that I do and stuff like that. So if you're ever curious, take a look there. So what am I getting on about? Let's talk about how an arm comes out of a tutorial in the really basic shapes that I use. You might be familiar to a degree. I like to start with a circle, and this circle sits right on the outside edge of the torso, and it becomes our guideline, so to speak, for a shoulder. Now, the truth of it is it's not a perfect circle, but a circle is a great starting point. I'm going to keep things quite big and bold, darker than I normally draw them so they come up clearly. And then from about the center of this circle, I like to draw a line out to indicate where an arm would be, and then maybe just this is the elbow, and then I'll bring it back in here. Now this arm is going to be your classic hand resting on the hips kind of look. So before I kind of dive in and draw the arm shape around this indicating line is one where if this was hanging straight down, it would have an elbow around about just below where the rib cage stops, around about the middle of the waist. Just look at yourself in the mirror and let your hand hang by your side and you'll see it very clearly. And if this was going straight down, the hand itself would be just around about where the bottom of the bum line is as well. Again, that's kind of how you're going to measure the length of your arm. So if I start to bend it, things are going to curve up and around. Now, if I'm going to put a hand on hips, what I like to do is actually go for the hand first once I've got the rough arm shape. And this is because, although you should really start from the shoulder, it's a great starting point. If you have a hand interacting with the character, like maybe the hand's covering the face or like over the lips or covering an eye, the placement of the hand is really important. So you can put the hand in, or at least a rough indication of where the hand's going to be. Let's say there'll be some fingers down here and then more fingers down here. I'm just going to kind of thin that out for the moment as a rough indicator, and then we'll fill that in later. And that becomes an anchor point. So what I like to do is often have a very small ellipse around the wrist. And when I've got the elbow joint, I put in another circle right around here. Now it's nowhere as big as the shoulder circle, but by putting it right around where we've got the joint, I can now join up these lines. It's really useful stuff. Can you see that clearly? Yes, you can. So when it comes to the shoulder from the front view, this shoulder line bumps out a bit And often it's a bit longer down the arm than it is curved over the top. So I'm going to let this line smooth down a bit for a bit of length, and then it's going to go fairly straight down towards this circle. And this whole area up here is going to be the tricep zone. And again, it really doesn't show that much in a lot of female characters. But if I come underneath here, I'm going to bring another line in to make it the bicep. Again, covering that circle. And I've left a bit of gap here. So very, very quickly, let's talk about how the arm joins into the body. Now, when you've got a character that's maybe got some boobs, so I'm just going to do a cheeky bit of side boob in here, something like that. And again, we've got how to draw boobs tutorials completely separately. There's usually a bit of a chest and chest muscle that comes up from the side and then goes out to be part of the shoulder, like so. And then can even come down a little bit. And that means that this zone under here is where the armpit tends to be. And the arm tends to go up and in. And then you actually have a bit of the back muscle that comes from around about here that you just see that actually joins things up on the other side. So that tends to be this kind of zone that you get, and that's how you help to understand these shapes. Now already I can see I've drawn a very big muscly version of this character, but that's great. It's only going to help accentuate what I'm trying to point out, and then we can work off simpler versions later. So your shoulder comes in, your arm comes down. Now here, I'm just going to join these 2 points up, but with the forearm, things are always a bit thicker near the elbow than they are at the wrist. The wrist is often, if you imagine, a bit of a straight line comes out where all the bones are, but then it thickens out and you get a nice bit of curve. That becomes a forearm shape. And on the other side, you can kind of go fairly straight again, but this has a nice gentle curve that comes up and round to the elbow. And then it's a case of actually putting on the elbow joint. So we always get this nice easy elbow zone with the circle, but I like to get an elbow joint in as well to show exactly the rotation and the aim of the arm. So I'll pop another smaller circle around about here. That's where it's going to be. And in this instance, I'm going to bring it up and make that a bit of a point, like so. It's going to have a bit of pop, and that's going to help indicate the elbow sticking out there. So we've got this line here for the bicep zone. The forearm, as it comes in, stops around about here as a line. It all joins up fairly easily, and then just goes into an actual hand shape, which I'm just going to actually try to draw a little bit better, like this. And then, let's say, the center of the hand is this zone here. Hand tutorials also available. Get in a description below. That's where I link the playlist to all my tutorials. Let's pop in indicator for some knuckle joints. And then let's go something like 1, 2 like that. And then on this hand, it's going to come in a lot longer. That's going to be a long finger that goes in and down. Maybe in and down again, but not quite so long for the next finger. And then this little finger can just be coming off at a weird angle. This little piggy went to market. Something like that. But basically you get the idea. We've got a circle that becomes the shoulder zone. That circle is almost to be described as an upside down teardrop a bit. If you imagine, actually, it's coming down like this. We've got a bicep zone around about here. Triceps on the other side, and the forearm starts a bit thicker by the elbow and then curves down into some straighter, thinner area as it goes to the wrist. So we can get just a little crease line in there. So that's the basic side of things. Now I've gone into quite a bit of detail about this, but really as a very basic rule, you can just draw a circle here, draw where you want your line of the arm to go, draw a circle for the elbow and just join it up. You really can keep things very simple, especially with female anime characters or salarymen characters, ones where they're not really fighters, or at least the muscles aren't that important. So I could draw lots of other straight lines going out and make this kind of like a really cool Hindu god character. But what you guys are telling me is that you need arms for the foreshortened. Let's just check we're in focus. Yes, we are. And arms at other angles and bits. So that's what we're going to dive on and do. I've done my best to try to map this out. Now, for these examples, I will be making arms that look fairly muscular and shoulders that look fairly muscular. to help describe all of these shapes. So you don't have to make the shapes as extreme as I'm going to, but it's going to help visually, hopefully, for you guys at home. And do get in the comments and let me know if this does help or if it doesn't. So we're going to have an arm that's bent, and we're going to have a bit of forearm that's slightly foreshortened. And the reason why, oh, it's really hard drawing a torso without a head. The reason why we're going to do this is because a lot of you guys have said straight arms are fine, but when they're bent, you have a fair bit of trouble working out the various zones. So no worries at all. We imagine we've got ourselves character here, and I'm aware that I'm going to try to fit more in, so I'm not going to do this whole torso zone as such. Something like that, which means the neckline's up here, and shoulders down here. So let's get a nice big strong shoulder circle coming around about here, like so. And obviously there'd be one over on this side as well, but we're not going to worry about that. And then again, I'm just going to have this arm come straight down, but as it comes in this time, it's going to be coming slightly towards us as well. So you notice all of a sudden this line's shorter. It's called foreshortening, if you're not already aware. And then before I start to draw the arm, now that I know where it's going to be, again, I'm going to stick the hand right in the end. So we've got a small ellipse area where the wrist would be. This hand is going to be kind of towards us at a weird angle. Maybe we could do this character like just fiddling or adjusting or scratching like a bikini top, something like that. So if we have this hand come in, and then we'll make the thumb do all the work in that instance, something like that. And then how are we going to get away with drawing his fingers? They're going to have to come down and out, something like this, something like this. Don't worry about these bits too much, everybody. And then maybe like a finger would still be off there for a character. We'll come back to the hand. Really, that's not the main concern. So let's get this arm going back on. I'm going to turn this shoulder shape more into an upside down teardrop shape now to kind of map the shoulder muscle. And it really does help, everybody, if you know a little bit about basic anatomy. You don't have to know all the stuff in the world, but knowing the basics is going to really help you understand where some bumps tend to go, why some lines tend to be in some certain places. So here's my elbow joint, smaller than the shoulder, but not tiny. And then now, here's our line for the back edge of the arm. Ever so slight, if you're really got sharp eyes, ever so slight curve to this line. And that helps represent a bit of tricep zone. And then on the inside now, there's going to be a good bit of bicep curve. Now this arm's not completely bent up, but it is a bit. So there is going to be a noticeable curve there for the bicep. And then we need to get this whole forearm zone in. So again, it's going to be straight as it comes off of the wrist. But where we talk about it getting thicker as it goes into the joint, it's really going to thicken up very quickly because it's foreshortened. So we're going to reach up and around to make up, how am I going to say this? We're going to come up to match this circle shape to start off with. So up and then bounding around straight away, thickens up for the circle. And then down here as well, it's going to thicken up to this circle shape. So maybe this is going to come straight round here and then foreshorten in. So we've got a line that comes straight and curves round. Again, where the point is coming in, where the angles point to, that's where your elbow is going to be. So I'm going to have an elbow, smaller circle, around about here, which tells me for this whole forearm shape, I'm going to get a bulge here, like so. Hopefully that's nice and dark. Definite elbow bump there. And I'm not doing that as a perfect circle, more of a curved point. And then this forearm bulge down here, again, is going to be an area of muscle. So you might have straight lines that come off here. There's your muscle curve there. And then up here as well. With the arm being bent, there's going to be a good curved crease in there that will be drawn in. And then we'll just thicken up the line work back up to the shoulder. So hopefully that's all making sense. Again, got some lines in where the armpit would be, where the back comes in under the arm. It's a bit like that. And a bit like so. Excellent. That hand again, we'll come back to in a bit of a time lapse. But now you can see how we've got this kind of shape mapped onto things like this, but really starts to bring it back. Okay, still in focus, still in focus. Oh my god, we've been doing this for almost 15 minutes already. Thank you. If you're already halfway into this tutorial with me, you're hardcore crew, welcome. What I will do as well is that at the time of launching this video, I won't have done it, obviously. It'll be a Saturday. Hello, welcome to today. But in the next Draw of Mikey episode, those casual series I do where we just talk about anything, I'll try to do lots more arm examples in there. And once that episode's been made, you'll have a link or so as well. But I've got to do that episode first. Do you understand what I'm getting at? So, let's talk about the whole joint area when arms are up as well as down. We really need to cover the useful bits. I'm going to draw a head this time around because it really helps me. I find drawing a character from a head first so much easier than drawing from a torso because it really helps me understand the flow of everything and the placement. So again, try to be heavy with the lines just for you guys, but obviously your construction lines can be as light or as casual as you want things to be. Maybe have a cheeky eye in there. This is roughly where a winker, maybe, something like that. We'll have a character there. Head's tipped up, so the nose is going to be right round there. Let's not worry about that too much. Let's think about the arms. So, head shape, neckline coming down. I'm having a character leaning back, and this is going to be an arms above the head situation. So let's just get some torso coming in. Bit of rib cage shape, bit of tummy shape, something like so. So, arms going up above the head. We'll have like one of those stretches like that. Hope that makes sense. So first thing is that the shoulder circles aren't going to be perfectly down here this time. Everything hoiks up. So I'm going to bring the shoulder circles round and up instead. They're going to be further up towards the top. And I'm going to have the same here for this shoulder circle, like so. And then what that means is that we've got all these zones in that get really tight. So we've got this collarbone area here. That sort of shoots up straight into the shoulder muscle and then straight there. And then you've got your neckline in there, then maybe a bit of neck muscle there. And then this arm situation that we get to have is going to maybe come straight up out of the shoulder and go straight up to about here. And then I'm going to do the same on this side for this arm. Obviously this arm's behind the head. And again, we're going to map it in a very similar way. When we do the basic shapes, we can always kind of start from the same point. I've got some hands on the end. In this instance, I'm going to get to them in a minute. I'm just going to make sure that I've got the elbow joint in a place that I want it, around about here and around about here. And then again, I can let the main part of the arm come straight up. It's a good stretch, so you can get away with fairly straight lines here and here. But where this actually meets in now is a little bit different. The shoulder, again, is all bunched up and squeezed in. So that's going to be a curve, comes right in here. And then now you get all this angle to the underside of the arm and the shoulder and where the back comes in. So the back muscle is still going to come into play around about there. But this zone here, where we've got the, say, chest coming in, is going to come up like this. And if you imagine, this line here is almost meeting up because this shows you a bit more of an armpit area. And it's also going to go a bit up like that. And this whole area here, it's a bit of a weird zone, but this is our zone in shadow, our armpit place. Having shaded that in, it almost looks like I'm making it hairy. Ew. So if we then just on the other side get a line in, and when you look at it from another angle like this, again you see that line come straight up. This time it's becoming much more of a shoulder straight away. You still get the idea. There's an arm coming in, it tucks down like so. Okay, so again, with the forearm coming off of the shoulder, we're going to go a bit wider and then a bit thinner, kind of straight line in and a bit wider. When you have your arms above your head, I'm just doing that right now to remind myself. Yep, had to feel it there. The elbows go on the outside. I really wasn't sure. So that's where our elbow is going to be. I'm indicating the joint of a little circle because I might turn it into a line. And then on this side as well, we'll have some forearms come on here. Elbow joints out there. And then hopefully I've given this enough space that the hands might meet up. Oh, I've been very fortunate. Yeah, so if we go like that, and then that's a kind of shape where you get lots of interlocking fingers. For thumbs, again, I'm just doing it with my hands. Go to the front. So there might be a thumb here, and then it's just going to keep interlocking. So there'll be a thumb on this hand, and then on this side, there'll be fingers coming in, and fingers going out, and fingers coming in, and then fingers. Oh, I've just realised how dirty that sounds. Lots of fingering going on. Okay, interlocked fingers. Again, don't worry too much about the detail. This isn't a hand tutorial. That's not why we're here. But that will give you the idea. There's an arm over the head situation. Maybe your character's going to be waving or something. Just know how that's going to be. Oh, I hate that zone already. But thanks for coping, everybody. So there we go with arm slightly bent, arm slightly up. Now we need to really get serious. Let's have quite a muscly arm figure. And we're going to show this whole armpit zone again, or at least an arm up, so that you're going to see the different shapes the arm makes when you look at it from two completely different angles. So we're going to go side on with the character. Let's draw somebody here, like so. And if you've seen my how to draw faces tutorials from different common angles, you'll know that side on is like a real challenge. So let's just say character's nose area is going to be about here, something like this. Jawline's going to go up along here. Use some ear. Down about here. This is obviously the side of the head. And so that'll allow some eyes kind of be around about there. Nice wide and open maybe. And again, we'll turn this into a character in just a moment. We know where the framework is. Here's a head, which means now we can dive on. I'll have a neck there. I'm going to have the angle, if I can, a little bit lower than the shoulder level. So if I just imagine that the torso is going to come in here, that's really just going to help us see up and under this situation. So something like this, and then something like that for the rest of the character shape. And then, okay, so if we draw in a nice bent arm, like so you're going to get a nice tight muscle grouping, almost as if you're pulling your arm back for like a karate punch with your non-punching hand, like Yakuzuki or something like that. And so this shoulder circle, good powerful one I'm going to draw in, by the way, so it's nice and clear, is going to be, again, more of a shoulder upside down teardrop shape. So I'm going to bunch round here. And I'm actually going to bring this line curve further down from this guiding circle. I'm going to let it map forward a bit because this is going to obviously mark into the front muscles of the chest and the collarbone area there. And that helps give you your point where the neckline comes in and then meets under the jaw. And then this arm is going to come down to around about here, but be tucked straight back in like so. So straight away, I'm going to drop a circle round about here. And this time, I'm going to really let this muscle bunch. So I'm going to really, instead of coming straight down, I'm going to bunch this right around like so. And that's our bicep. And then the tricep in a very similar way. It's going to be a gentler curve, but it's also going to be flexing a little bit. Now what that means is that there's all sorts of squeezing and overlapping happening with the forearm. So if I just map where we're going to have a hand for a moment, something like that, and then, I don't really know what we're going to do with this hand. Let's just map out where it might be, and then just understand that it might be there. This might be another boob hold, who knows? Okay, so if we come in back off the hand and get our very thin ellipse for the wrist meeting point, and then again, the forearm is going to be a bit of a line, a bit of a straight one as we start out the hand, and a bit of a straight one again as we start out the hand. But then, it's really got a lot of work to do. So this is actually going to really come in and bunch round, and it's going to cover most of this zone as it overlaps. It's really going to come in thick and heavy. And as we come down the underside edge as well, the curve is going to be a bit more natural, but it's going to follow right under this circle, right round here. So obviously, that's a circular shape. We're going to follow where this line points and this line points, down here. Imagine that's the arrow. And that tells us that the elbow is going to be around about here. So as I make this line come round and down, I'm going to bump it out around about here for the elbow. I'm going to bring that back in. And then because it's all squeezed in, I'm going to accentuate a bit of muscle around about here. So again, it's going to curve up and then come round. And this kind of shows where the forearm's really squeezing everything on this character together, like so. This, like that, and like that. Okay, so again, there we've got a bit more of an idea. Oh, his hand may be a bit too far forward now, but I've drawn that thumb over there. Sorry, it's just going to bug me if I don't do that a bit better. Lovely. We'll come back to that. And then down here, you've got maybe a bit of a line before it drops down and becomes the rest of the chest area. So we've got our basic arm. We've got a bit of curving and bending, a lot of curving and bending. This is probably, because I've drawn a very muscular female character here, this will obviously serve you as well for your male characters. And now we just need to look at this arm. And if you do this shape by your own side, and then bring your arm perfectly out sideways and all the way up as if you're doing like an upward block. Let's take a look at this shape. This will be the toughest one, so this might be the worst example so far. But let's look at this shape as if it was going up as well as down. We've really got to push our technique, everybody. We can't do easy tutorials all the time, because what you guys have told me clearly is that you want very particular arm tutorials. You know how to do basic arms, but you want to know how to do the shapes that are really just giving you personal guys headaches. So this time we're going to be seeing not the outside edge of the arm and forearm, we're going to be seeing the inside edge, and we're going to work out what that's going to do to the situation. So we can keep this looking like maybe a blocking technique. So maybe I can get a hand in this time that's going to be actually making, or let's say like a fist. So, oh god, upside down fist, everybody, that is some really hard technique. Oh my god, and again, that sounds like something really horrible and sexual. Oh my god, they did the upside down fist. Never seen that before in live streaming. Okay, so let's get knuckle joints. Oh my god, something like that. It's kind of an upside down hand. I'm going to keep the shape really light to kind of help indicate the fact I barely know what I'm drawing right there, but I kind of almost get away with it. Upside down fist technique. So let's, as ever, get the circle in where the elbow is going to be. It's all about these building blocks, everybody. We kind of put in some basic shapes, and then we helps us build characters on top. And the more you get used to it, the less you'll use the basic shapes first, and the more you'll just start drawing the natural shapes overall. So just keep up the practice, if anything. So let's say again that this forearm's going to have a bit of a straight zone. And again, just curve out a bit, bump a bit as it gets to the elbow. And then same on this side, it's going to bump out a bit as it gets in. And then the bicep on this part of the arm is going to be coming down like so. Now, oh, it matches the back curve of the head. How convenient. Now, with an up arm example, again, much like over here, the shoulder, which I've drawn here in this instance, will be further up and around here. It's going to be a much higher shoulder because the arm's raised. So it'd actually come up a bit more like so. So what I've drawn now is like a double shoulder character. What's that? What's that monster that's in Mortal Kombat and it's got loads of arms? Get in the comments, let me know. I can't quite remember. I haven't played Mortal Kombat since the days of a PlayStation, but I remember there's a load of, like a multi-armed character. One of the bosses, maybe? Some kind of demon? Anyway, and then we'll come down on this side of a tricep zone. Not stretched, well, not bunched up when it's up like this. So again, the muscles get to just stretch out a little bit. There would be the back muscles and the rear of the shoulder, showing those things coming in. But this hopefully gives you an idea. Now, what happens on the inside of the arm are a couple different things. If we make that curve still there, and then this line and this line makes an arrow that points perfectly in that direction. So again, that's how I know that I've got an elbow over here. Pro tip. So I'm going to just bring that off as a point for this elbow, a really strong point there. And then this is going to come in a bit, and this actually tends to indicate a bit of a line of pulling that comes down on there. So sometimes you can indicate that if you want and draw it in. And on the inside edge, where the forearm is actually overlapping this part of the arm, there's often a bit of curve there, like a bit of a line that indicates the inside edge of the bicep, marking out this zone here. So it's really tough stuff, that inside edge of an arm to get on, and you're very rarely ever going to probably find you draw it because it's a bit of an unusual angle, but it is still a very useful thing to be aware of. So here we've got Weird Mutant Arm Girl, Stretching Up Girl, hand coming in. I'm not going to lie, we're probably going to draw some boobs on these characters now as part of a time lapse to make this all complete. But let's have a quick look through the camera phone. Yes, you've kind of got a rough idea, and this tutorial has been, again, much longer than I'd anticipated. So thank you very much for following along. Let's drop into some time lapse now. Turn maybe, or I'll put some shapes on here, but maybe only turn a couple of them into characters because we might run out of time, and I'll see you guys right at the end, okay? Okay guys, and there you have it. Hopefully some useful how to draw arms tutorials, and hopefully a tutorial that's actually useful for the kinds of arms that you might be drawing, not just the basic shapes, more about the intricacies and the way they kind of fold back on themselves. So yeah, again, I will try to do loads more arm examples next Wednesday with the next draw of Mikey. Obviously, we'll talk about whatever, but hopefully I'll make some arms part of the picture work. And get in the comments. Did you find this useful? Do you want different tutorials? Let me know. I will endeavour to get them done. Don't forget, hover over this video or click like an information icon somewhere over there, and stuff expands out and you get stuff and ting in general. Otherwise, click like, click subscribe if you haven't already, and there'll be more in the future. Love you guys loads. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.